But again, I don't know that you're in any type of jeopardy over there on Uphold's regular application either. Thank you for the super chat, Mr. McGee. We've got Mr. Luther. He says, hello, legend. What's up, dude? What is your opinion of tokenization of gold on, I'm assuming he means Ethereum blockchain. Do you view Ethereum as a competitive threat? God bless. So again, there's an EVM sidechain on the XRPL. Ethereum is proof of stake. They've already had a 51% attack on the network. That's why you have Ethereum Classic. So the network has been forked once in the past. The latency is very high for Ethereum, especially when the network's congested. Costs also go up substantially on Ethereum when the network's congested. It just doesn't have enough throughput, and that's why you've seen a lot of layer 2s built out on top of Ethereum to be able to kind of band-aid those gaps, or have workarounds to be able to facilitate transactions between counterparties that have developed DeFi applications either on Ethereum itself or on layer 2s. I think the EVM, which is the Ethereum virtual machine, will be used in a bunch of different applications, but Ethereum, the blockchain itself, really hasn't lived up to the hype over the long term that was set out by Vitalik and Joseph Lubin. It took them a long time to migrate from proof of work to proof of stake, and it really didn't do much for the throughput and cost on that network. It's a mainstay. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. But again, Bitcoin and Ethereum I kind of view as the Napster or the Alta Vista of crypto. Both of those are first movers. They have large market share. They disrupted industries. They have unique technologies that a portion of it will be used in the future. However, as better options come to market that are more secure, higher throughput, lower cost, I think that those will see the adoption. And we've already seen that transition once in the past with Ethereum. Ethereum originally had the majority of the NFTs issued on that blockchain. Bored Ape Yacht Club and many of the other things that happened in 2021 were on that network. And then we saw a large migration for meme coins and NFTs over to Solana in this last cycle, because Solana has much higher throughput and much lower cost than Ethereum. I think the same will be true as some of these other networks like the XRPL, Hedera, and XLM come into vogue during this next utility phase of the application or adoption of this asset class and these protocols. So I don't really view it as a threat. I think it's great in the fact that it disrupted an industry and created a whole new vertical for smart contracts. But I think that there are much better networks that can facilitate that at scale versus Ethereum over the long term. All right, Brad, Mr. Bryson, he says, hey Jake, outside of a supply shock, how would the mechanics work in the future for Ripple institutions with the escrow being locked up? They can't use it until it's released, right? Or how does that work? Well, $1 billion is released each month on the first of the month, 12 a.m. UTC is when that's unlocked. Anybody can go in there and actually, unlock the escrow and release the XRP. That was put out by Vet, and he actually went out and did that one time when I was saying, hey, they haven't, taken the escrow out yet. It goes to a wallet that Ripple controls, right? So they then get to make that distribution, do what they're going to do with it. Whether that's, re-escrow a portion of it like they have for the majority of the time that they've had those releases. The last couple years, it's been $700 million that they've re-escrowed on the back end of the note. They have over 50 wallets that escrow is released to at this point. They normally take about $300 million and put it onto the market and sell that each month to be able to generate cash flow for their business and, do other things with. Buy shares back, do it, whatever else they're doing. Scaling. institutional partnerships gaining adoption for XRP, which is their North Star. You know, I still think people don't understand the order of events that have to take place for XRP to see significant price appreciation, and how Ripple plays an integral role in helping that along. They can't orchestrate it themselves. Otherwise, it would be a security of Ripple. So they do, you know, have a large portion of the escrow. Anybody can escrow XRP on the XRPL, by the way. So if you want to go play with that function, you can just go to xrptoolkit.com. And you can, you know, add your wallet address, and you can play with the different functionality that's native on chain built into your wallets. Time escrows are one of those. So if you wanted to, you know, lock up some XRP over a period of time that would flow back to your wallet at a future date, you can do that. I've done that with a large portion of what I have, so it'll come back to me, you know, in the future, hopefully at a higher price than what it sits at today. But all that being said, you know, with the Clarity Act, you know, no one company is supposed to be able to control more than 20% of the total supply. I think that because they have, you know, they've thought this through, and they've got over 50 wallets that the escrow is going to over time, they could easily, you know, transfer those wallets, or the keys to those wallets, or access to those wallets, to a larger body, the U.S. government, people that had, you know, pre-negotiated options on certain amounts of XRP, could redeem that XRP as it was released from escrow over time to those additional wallets. There's lots of different ways that they could orchestrate that in order to be able to meet that, you know, regulation if it were passed. Which again, I'm still skeptical on the Clarity Act. I would love to see it happen, just like everybody else would. I was literally advocating for it last year on Capitol Hill alongside the Genius Act during the summer when we got the Genius Act passed. But with as long as it's taken, and them just now passing the markup, we're supposed to see it on the Senate floor within the next 30 days. I'm hopeful that the Senate actually passes that. But with the amount that they struck out of the bill that the Democrats had put in there, I don't know that they're going to get the additional 5 to 7 votes that they need for that to actually be able to pass the Senate when they do put it up for a vote. If they do, it would then have to go to the House. The House is primarily Republican, so they should be able to get it through there, and then, you know, again, to the president's desk in order to be able to get him to sign that into law. Ideally, you know, people are talking about July 4th, that being passed. Again, would love to see it. I'm very skeptical that that's going to end up taking place here in 2026 with midterms, the PACE Act, the SAVE Act, and other things kind of on the docket for Congress's attention. I'm still giving it about a 5% chance that it passes. And again, would love to see that 5% happen, but not overly convinced that they're going to be able to get it done. Everyday Scout says Amendment 77 in the Clarity Act. Let's talk about it. How does Amendment 77 hurt assets from being retroactively